This is a random video, but also a little bit of a rant time. I'm a psych major, so in my studies at this particular point, there's always been, but there is for me currently, the large debate of the nature versus nurture conversation. In my current studies, what I'm realizing is in regards to the nature versus nurture debate, your environments as children, this I think is a topic of conversation that should be brought up amongst people who deal actively with larger amounts of trauma. Everybody is to some degree traumatized in their own ways, from their own perspectives. But I mean people who suffer from things like PTSD, CPTSD, different more aggressive symptoms of trauma. When it comes down to it, you compare, for example, let's say we've got Bobby and Christina. Lord rest her soul, but Bobby and Christina. They are twins, identical twins. Their genetic makeup is damn near identical. But they were raised in two totally different households. Bobby was raised in the loving, nurturing, successful household, while Christina was raised in an environment that was emotionally chaotic, etc., etc. Okay, Bobby is guaranteed to become all of the things that are successful. Okay, in this particular instance, Bobby's a lawyer. Bobby married her high school sweetheart. They've had two children that have grown to be successful. Both have decided to become lawyers at that. And Christina is out here fighting for her life. Okay, she been fighting for her life since she was in school, right? Your environment plays more of a role on how successful you can and or will push yourself to be. And I'm realizing that it's a lot of individuals with amazing minds, amazing talents, right, that are not able necessarily to push themselves to be or to the height of the potential that they have, partially because 321 when I looked up just a second ago, partially because their environments have not equipped them with what they need to be successful, right? In this particular instance, Bobby, for example, can describe her parents as emotionally supportive, constantly providing her with positive reinforcement and things of that nature. These things attributed to her success. Having people to root her on, not just root her on from a perspective of you have to be successful or else, but root her on from a perspective of, baby, if that's what you want to do, we're supporting you. You know what I'm saying? Figure out, decide what it is that you want to try, and no matter what it is, we'll be here for you while you try it. Having individuals in her corner that were telling her, you can do hard things too. These things are hard, but you can do them, having a support system behind her that was reinforcing of the positivity that is needed in life really contributed to her doing one of the hardest things that there is out here to do, which is become a lawyer of sorts. You see what I'm saying? While Christina did not have that. She grew up in an environment, according to the study, that was abusive. She had an angry alcoholic father. Her mother was anxious, depressed, and emotionally codependent, etc., etc. So when you grow up in environments where, for example, you have a parent that is emotionally dependent, 411, when I look up that number, has been following me around a lot lately. You will grow up, and as you're growing up, rather than figuring out what it is that you want to try so you can try it, you're in situations where you're looking for the hurt in other people so you can figure out how to fix it. Your success becomes in helping other people through their shit. Sound familiar, right? When you're in situations where, for example, you've got an angry, abusive father figure, or whichever parent, because the mother in that instance could have very well picked up terrible coping skills as well. Nonetheless, say that is the case. You have a parent that is angry and abusive and leaning on drugs to cope. Literally 500 when I looked up. You're not going to be equipped with the skills that's necessary to aid in emotional intelligence. You see what I'm saying? So that you can have the hard conversations. You're going to avoid those things. It'll be easier to try to lie your way out of situations. It'll be easier to make excuses for your behavior or for other people's bad behavior at different instances. I think it's interesting that, and it kind of pisses me off a little bit more, being an individual who's grown through and is currently still going through certain traumas. It kind of pisses me off because we just so happen to be the people that in the instances where that is the case, where your parents do not want to take a responsibility or accountability for, they are all for certain levels of acknowledgement, but not so much for the taking accountability portion. And it's irritating because even just the accountability being taken, the acknowledgement can always be spent as, yeah, you see it that way, but that's not what really happened. So it turns into more gaslighting. This is the reason why individuals in that type of a scenario don't necessarily care for you acknowledging the experiences. I don't need you to acknowledge that I lived through what I lived through. I need you to take accountability for your part in it. And it's interesting, and it pisses me off a little bit because without that, you have to find ways to work through that on your own. And whether it's realized or not, a lot of those individuals, while they can still be successful, they're never successful to their standard, or they're rarely successful to their standard because they're spending so much time undoing and unlearning and replacing all of the systems that were put in place by those before them. You see what I'm saying? There's a certain level of irritation and anger that comes with knowing that this is a fact and knowing that you're undoing the work of someone else. Because when you hear those conversations, for example, where people are like, we're given the same 24 hours in a day. The way you've been taught to use your 24 hours might be different from somebody else's. So that conversation, it's grown stale for me personally, because yes, we are both given the same 24 hours in a day, but you've been so blessed as to operate that 24 hours from a mode of thriving and not surviving. I'm just trying to survive to the next day. You know what I'm saying? Got to get it how you live. You feel me? While you were grown up on not even knowing what the fuck I got to make $1 out of 15 cents means. Somebody else does. And them knowing that puts them in a position to have to move differently. They move and operate in general from different spaces because of what they're accustomed to. So I don't know. It's just interesting personally, the nature versus nurture conversation, because it brings into play a lot of different people's different experiences, right? You take the two twins, for example, who are identical and have lived completely different lives. And then you are trying to compare why or how they turned out completely fucking different. It's the environment, right? It's not their genetic makeup that really has too much to do with how they turn out or how they express themselves or whatever the case may be. Your environment has a lot more to do with the ways that you are than people like to give it credit for. And I feel like that's the case because if it was given its proper credit, there are a certain level of individuals, there are a certain demographic of individuals that would have no choice but to take accountability and responsibility for their own disappointments. You're disappointed in your child because they're dependent on weed or alcohol or whatever to cope with their daily life. The truth of the matter is it might not actually be their daily life that they're trying to cope with. It's the fact that their life is the way that it is because they didn't have a better shot at living a better life because of the environment you provided them. You disappointed in your child because they got ADHD. They just can't seem to start and finish shit. Okay, you had not provided them with an environment that was conducive to learning how to work with their brain. Also, based off of studies that I've done at 1010, when I look up that I've done in school so far, it's interesting because what you would expect in a lot of cases, what you would expect is autism and ADHD and things of that nature. It's not. It's symptoms of PTSD and CPTSD. It's not necessarily that your brain, you were born hardwired different. Sometimes it's that your brain developed different hardwiring to cope with its environment. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm also not quite yet a licensed doctor. This is just what I'm learning in my studies. It's just interesting to have these conversations currently, and mostly with myself, but it's just interesting to have these conversations currently because it puts things into a different perspective for me personally. Being a person that did live through some rather traumatizing events that had 11/11 have rewired my brain in such a way that now I'm trying to fix, or not even fix, but learn how to better work with. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily want to be flashing red all damn day. I'm trying to plug the shit in differently so I get a rainbow of colors. You see what I'm saying? And so it's interesting because given that perspective, for example, it puts me in a space of knowing, okay, I'm not broken or damaged or anything like that. My environment provided me a certain set of shit. Life handed me motherfucking lemons. I had to make lemonade based off what I was given. And now that I have the lemonade, I get to choose based off of the environments and spaces that I've cultivated for myself. How sweet, how bitter, how do I want ice in it? I get to determine how I want my lemonade to taste. You see what I'm saying? But it's a certain level of 12/12 when I look up. It's a certain, almost really beautiful, honestly, level of acceptance that comes, or forgiveness really, that comes in with the acceptance that that is the case. It also puts me in a perspective of not necessarily needing the other individual's acknowledgement. It's why I said earlier, I don't need your acknowledgement. I need you to take accountability. But even now, with that, with the conversation that we just had, I don't need that either. I've grown to a space of accepting that 9 times out of 10, a good chunk of them individuals will never take responsibility for their role in it because everybody's out here doing what's best and right for them. The brain's hardwired to protect itself by any means necessary. And so in order to preserve their own sense of self, they can't. It's going to, they can, but they don't think. 1313, when I look up, they don't think they can. And I just have to be okay with that because at the end of the day, I have no control over their brains. I have no control over anything involving them. And so, I don't know. I just think this was a very interesting conversation, and I would love to get more input on that conversation, 1333, when I look up. I would love to get more information on other people's ways of thinking when it comes to things like that, or other points of view on the nature-nurture debate. I'd love that. But yeah, so I guess hit me up down below in the comments or wherever to have this discussion, because I would love to open up a space to have these conversations, especially because, for example, personally, it helped me having these conversations with other classmates or in my studies, with myself in my studies. Because like I said, it's helped me get to the point where I am now, where I'm like, all right, bet, you know, there's no need for me to look for. In looking for them to take accountability to a certain degree, I've accepted. That is me looking for their validation. It's me looking for you to validate the experience that I had by taking accountability for your role in it. And I don't need that. You see what I'm saying? Not anymore. Not after coming to this conclusion in these conversations that I have with myself. So please feel free to comment, ask questions. I'm here for it. If I've come across it in my studies, I'm here to answer any question that the books can answer as of right now. But this was a very interesting conversation, and I thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, you have a great day.